So I know I proposed this evening's topic, but I struggled like hell with it as well. Um,
Do tell. Why was
I so the topic for the evening, what we're going to start with is what's your favorite Bond theme song? And then I think the original wording I used was best. What was the best Bond theme song? I changed it in the notes and put favorite, best, worst, etc. But I struggled because I realized I attach far more to the song than just listening to the song.
yeah.
And so there are a bunch of them where I enjoy the songs, but I don't enjoy the movies as much as maybe some other combinations of song and film or what have you. And then there are some where I enjoy the music, some where I enjoy the lyrics, some where I actually enjoy the whole package. I didn't realize how convoluted a decision it would be to try to pick my favorite Bond theme song.
Well, there's a lot of them. There's like, we're like in the neighborhood of 20, 25. Yeah, right?
Yeah,
There's 25.
24
There's
films plus the James Bond theme itself.
Yeah, so there's 25 movies. The Dr. No, the first James Bond song, did not have a James Bond song. And I don't think the Lazenby movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I don't think it actually had a song. It's hard for me to remember.
I didn't try to correlate all of them.
Well, I was I had an album called 50 Years of Bond Music, I think, and it had all of them all the way through the one with Jack White and Alicia Keys, Quantum of Solace.
Another Way to Die. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the album that I used was the Best of Bond, the re-release. I think it's a re-release. It's the 2-disc set that they released in conjunction with No Time to Die that has all of the theme songs. So up through the newest one from Billie Eilish.
Yeah, that would be the.
I never can say her name appropriately.
I think Billie Eilish, but Billie Eilish. Yeah. Her song was really quite good. It was very, like, as soon as I heard it, it's like, oh, this is Billie Eilish, but it also did have a nice Bond movie feel. Like the early songs, even through the early I feel like, up until the early 70s, I think the first song that feels like it's not part of a cohesive group is the Paul McCartney and the Wings, Live and Let Die. Like that's the first one that's like, oh, this I can hear Paul McCartney's influence in it. I can hear the Wings. And it felt very different from everything else, whereas everything else seemed cohesive with the score. And it was in a style that was, when I hear about music from the 60s that is of this genre, that it all seems very cohesive. Even the Louis Armstrong song, like he has, you hear Louis Armstrong and he says world the way he says world, and it's Louis Armstrong, but it does feel like it could have been any singer singing that song. It could have been Shirley Bassey, who sang a bunch of Bond songs.
And she did 3, right?
She did Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, Moonraker. Yeah, 3.
So I did cheat. I did drop the artists and songs into the shared note not too long ago.
I saw that
and pulled that back up.
yeah. Oh no, I'm totally looking at that right now. Just, I refamiliarized myself with all the songs today, and I remember thinking Tom Jones. I was like, it's not unusual, but I don't think his voice lends itself to that style, but the music is really good for Thunderball. But Do you have a favorite?
I think I have finally settled on two for two different reasons.
Tell me.
So my favorite overall package, I have to finally give to Skyfall. The music was phenomenal. Adele's vocals are obviously great. One of the big things for me is the lyrics have to resonate to an extent as well. And every time I hear that song, part of me wants to dance to it. You know, it triggers something, and there's that very real, like visceral. I see the opening sequence as the song starts when I hear the intro. So, just overall package, I would say Skyfall gets my vote. Other than that one, it's really tough for me not to fall back on Live and Let Die. And it's because it was the first one that I remember really being something that I would hear not just watching the Bond film.
So somehow Guns N' Roses didn't ruin that for you?
Somehow not.
Because you know they covered it.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
And I have enough of a fond memory of the original that I can listen to the cover and not just be completely annoyed by it. Like, I don't think their cover was great by any means.
No, neither do they.
Right. But it doesn't just make me want to, turn off the music or throw a CD across the room or in any other violent act. It's like, that's the same song, but whatever. Or it's a cover of the song, but whatever. But the original Paul McCartney and the Wings version, I love. Every time I hear it, it's just fond memories of growing up watching Bond. And even though I know that was not the first Bond film I saw, that's the first Bond theme that I really remember being stuck in my mind and then hearing elsewhere. So it's a very sentimental pick, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I get that, because I've got... It's like, as far as my overall choice is going to be The World Is Not Enough.
Interesting. I would not have picked that one.
Yeah. So I love Garbage. And I loved Garbage in the 90s. And that was the first Bond movie I saw in the cinema. And I had the score, which included the song by Garbage. So I listened to it a lot. So I can't help but know or help but assume that, like, there's a lot of personal attachment to that, and that's why it's my favorite. But the music's really good, and I really like Garbage, and I really like Shirley Manson's voice, and so, I went, before, I'd actually forgotten about it, and when I went back and listened to songs, I'm like, oh yes, and it just brought back, a lot from, over 20 years ago, and I probably, if you'd asked me, like, if we had talked about this last week, I probably would have said, You Know My Name was probably my favorite, because I love Chris Cornell as well. Like, I think he has a great voice. And I also can't not talk about Jack White's influence on Another Way to Die. That just is, like, the music is there for me on that.
Yeah, and so I have similar feelings about both of those. They don't break that top tier for me.
But see, one of the things about You Know My Name that's really interesting to me is that it's kind of a nod to the movie that Daniel Craig did prior to Casino Royale, which was Layer Cake. I don't know if you've seen Layer Cake or not.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, so if you recall the last, I don't think this is a spoiler, but if you recall the last thing that his character says in Layer Cake, I don't know if you remember the closing line of that movie.
I do not. It's been probably 12, 13 years since I've watched it.
He makes a comment. He's like, he says, if you know my name, you'd be the clever one. And so it's like the name, you know, if you'd know my name. And so I assume it's maybe a nod to that scene in the movie, but I remember hearing people say, this is just something that's been in my mind, something that is total speculation, but that Craig's performance in Layer Cake is what sealed the deal for him to play Bond.
Yeah, I need to watch it again, but it was a great movie.
Yes, I really like that movie. It's a clever movie. But one of the things I feel like that's overlooked is Moby's. Moby did a remix of the Bond theme for Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm not sure if it's on.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's so good. Like that was like, I remember the first time I heard that I was watching NBA Inside Stuff and on NBC, and on a Saturday morning, and they played that song on a clips reel, and I was like, that's amazing. And that was where I first was introduced to Moby, and I was just like, whoa. And it was the Bond theme, and it was like so cool. And so I feel like that, in my opinion, that is also a Bond song. As an artist, he created a song. It does not have lyrics. It has some clips from Goldfinger, but that's it. But it's so cool.
I mean, the original Bond theme, the one done by John Barry with the orchestra, there's no lyrics.
Right.
And it's officially the theme.
Right.
And as far as I know, it has showed up in every Bond film in some fashion.
Yeah, I think so. I was also noticing today when I was listening to it, and because I'll mention one of my favorite songs from the 60s is Nancy Sinatra's "You Only Live Twice," and the music from that I feel is interpolated in part of the score of Casino Royale. I need to go back and listen to them side by side just to confirm that, but I feel like there's a scene in Casino Royale where Bond and Vesper are on they're in this Italian Riviera I guess they're outside of, I don't know, they're bouncing around. I don't know where they are, but they're on a small speedboat, and the music around that time is, in that part of the movie, is very similar to the string section of "You Only Live Twice."
So I have a follow-up question, just talking about how, "You Know My Name" is one that I do enjoy immensely, and the main reason I think I enjoy it is because I have grown to love Craig's portrayal of Bond more than any of the others.
Same.
Which is really tough to say. Well, and at this point, I don't think it's that tough to say, but, after up to the point of Skyfall, maybe even giving the benefit of the doubt and going an extra movie into Spectre, it was still tough to put him at the top of my list. He was tied with Connery because Connery was how I was introduced to Bond, and so he was just untoppable, so to speak. But I really love Craig's Bond, and so "You Know My Name" being the first song that introduced him as well, there's a certain aspect of that to it that I do enjoy, that does make me immediately think about it and everything else. And it is just a good song in general. As much as I like Jack White and Alicia Keys independently, I don't like the combination of them in a song as much as I thought I might. And this is where Another Way to Die breaks down for me. I like the music and I like the lyrics, but I don't like the total package together. Something about it just feels a little bit off. It's still one that gets me, it's one I'll absolutely flip on and listen to. It's still one that gets me excited about the song and everything else, but it's not one that I'm going to go seek out and play it's one that I'm not going to turn off if it comes on. It's that kind of dissonance, and I'm just curious about your take on it.
Yeah, I like you don't like the whole package. Like it's not to say that it's not a good song and it's not well done. It's just that I would have rather have heard the White Stripes do it, or the White Stripes had broken up, but the Rankin Tours, or just Jack White by himself. That would have been what I wanted to hear. And it's not that I don't like Alicia. It's not that I don't like Alicia Keys. She's just not the type of artist I tend to gravitate towards. And if she had done it, if she had performed that song on her own, it very well could have been a better song than the combination of the two. But whenever I hear Jack White playing, I'm like, I really want more of, less collaboration and more of him.
So an additional level beyond that, one thing that I do really like about the contribution of the two, similarly, I do like hearing Jack White's playing, but I'm a sucker for a good piano as well.
Yeah,
which I think is part of why I keep coming back to Skyfall being the one that I would say overall total package is just the song for me. But it's also part of why I think I don't like the way Another Way to Die was done. I think it would have been better without the piano emphasis, or being more piano driven and drop, the heavy guitar emphasis.
But then it wouldn't be Jack White.
Right.
But then it might have been a better song if it was just
like
Alicia Keys.
And I feel like that's part of why I have that disconnect with it. Because I do like both aspects of it. I just don't like the mesh of them.
Yeah.
What did you think of Sam Smith's The Writings on the Wall?
It wasn't for me.
I understand completely. So this is one of those where I love the lyrics. Lyrically, it's a phenomenal song. But I just can't listen to it over and over.
Like, it's forgettable for me. Like, so here's the thing. Almost, my opinions of the songs are almost all driven musically. It's very little lyrically. Like, the most I've appreciated lyrically is You Know My Name is an homage to Layer Cake.
So generally speaking, from just a music standpoint, do you tend to not care at all about lyrics 90+% of the time?
Not just not care. Sometimes you say, it changed around 2016, but prior to 2016, like, understanding lyrics was almost a struggle for me. Like, I would have to sit there and really concentrate on what the lyrics were, So the voice has always been another instrument to me, and a number of things have changed in 2016 that made me pay attention to lyrics more and not have to work so hard to decipher them in my head. So it's a little more important than it used to be, but it's still not nearly as important. If it's musically something interesting to me, the lyrics don't matter at all, unless the lyrics are just super stupid. And then it's like, I really like this music, and even though I'm not really paying attention to the lyrics, I now know that they're stupid, and it's more bothersome on an intellectual level, not necessarily something that I notice while I'm listening to the song.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know we've talked about it offline, but I figured for the sake of the conversation, it would be better to inject that real quick, because it leads to my next question. So, how do you view Die Another Day, Madonna's entry into the themes?
I hate it. I like Madonna. She's a great artist, and I love there's a number of her songs that I'm like, this is really catchy, and I'll listen to it. Like, at some point in time, I'm like, I want to hear this kind of song, and I'll play the song. Like the dance song that she had, she sampled the Swedish group ABBA. She sampled an ABBA song in the mid 2000s for a song that got really popular from Confessions on the Dance Floor, something like that. I don't even remember the song, but it was like the most popular single of the song. I really like that, but I hated Die Another Day. I didn't see the movie. I heard it was awful. I heard, trying to remember what I guess The World Is Not Enough was the movie that came out before it. And one of the problems I had with that movie was how, it used to be Bond was the only one making puns. And I liked that. I was amused by that. But I remember in The World, The World Is Not Enough, like multiple characters were making puns. And it was just really kind of awful. And I think it, from secondhand account was that Die Another Day was even worse with that, and so I never went and saw it. And it's also got a terrible Madonna song.
Yeah, I think we can have a massive continuation when we actually talk about the films themselves. But one thing I will add or interject, I guess, I didn't have that kind of problem watching Die Another Day. The film itself was... all of the Brosnan films other than GoldenEye to me were just kind of meh. Like I enjoyed them. They were okay to watch, but they weren't films that I would necessarily gravitate toward. GoldenEye being the big exception. To me, GoldenEye was great. Part of that also is the tie-in to the N64 game and just everything about GoldenEye in general. But I hated Die Another Day as a theme song as well.
Awful.
And I hated the opening sequence and all. Obviously, if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen the opening sequence either. But it just, nothing about it was enjoyable to me.
So, speaking of opening sequence, I didn't watch a pre-Craig Bond movie until since watching Casino Royale. I had not watched a pre-Craig Bond movie until this past November, because it was just that movie. Because like Casino Royale, so as soon as I saw that movie, I remember hearing, like, prior to that movie, the hype was like, people did not like Craig. People had, there was a whole thing about people having thought another actor should have taken that role, Clive Owen. So we won't.
Yeah, I had very strong anti-Craig feelings prior to seeing him in the role as well. I'll go on record, and we can follow up.
Yeah,
and come back to that.
And maybe the next show we'll talk more about like the movies themselves. But the whole thing about it was a reboot of the James Bond franchise, and they did. I think they did a fantastic job. The point that I wanted to make was that the opening sequence was so cool because it was the first opening sequence since the Dr. No that did not feature the bodies of women. It was all cards. It was all animations that had to do with cards and the casino and roulette wheels. And it was a very cool opening sequence. And it had a cool song. And it really marked a difference. Now, I don't think they succeeded in completely changing the narrative of Bond's misogyny, because I don't think that they were trying to de-misogynize him. But I think there was an attempt to change the narrative about, hey, we're not going to romanticize Bond's misogyny. But again, this is probably something that we can pick up as a topic where we actually talk about Bond movies and not Bond songs.
Yeah, I want to delve further into that for sure, because I have some differing thoughts. The only thing that I really want to mention, since I did mention that I was very strongly opinionated anti-Craig prior to seeing him in the role, I was 100% on board with seeing Clive Owen be James Bond. And I've seen Clive Owen in plenty of things. I was very familiar with his body of work. what I had seen Daniel Craig in was a much smaller subset of work. My big thing against Craig, though, was that he was blonde and didn't fit the mold of what we had been sold for Bond from day one. You know, all of the other actors have had dark hair and had a generally similar appearance, so to speak. I mean, obviously there are differences across the actors, but there was fairly cohesive. If you go from Connery to Lazenby to Moore to Dalton to Brosnan, you can see a very common theme, right? And Craig does not fit that theme.
Yeah, Moore might be more of those four pre-Craig Bonds. Moore might be the odd one out. But you look at Brosnan and Dalton, and you can see, these are Sean Connery, stand-ins maybe. But.
And so my opinion was purely focused on appearance. It had nothing to do with Craig's ability to act or anything else. It was just, no, you're changing what has been established as the look for Bond. And then the first couple of minutes of Casino Royale, watching that film, it's like, no, this is perfect. Like, forget all of my trepidation or concern about the matter. I'm not going to second guess casting again. I mean, he fits the role so perfectly that I have more trouble now going back and watching like Brosnan or Moore or Dalton or any of the others in the role than I do Craig, with the exception of Connery. And I think most of the reason I don't have the issue with Connery in the role is because of how old those films are compared to the Craig films.
I can see that.
I really don't think it is the fact that he was how I was introduced to it. I think it's just with how old those are, there's a very different feel and appearance and look and campiness and everything else to the films that it's just, okay, this is Bond version 1 and Craig is Bond version 2 and Bond version 2 is drastically better.
Yeah. Do you have any other notes or comments on any of the other songs?
Yeah, we should probably at least come back to the actual topic. One that I had forgotten about was Carly Simon. Nobody Does It Better.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that one. It's
Same.
not, I wouldn't rank it, at the top of my list, but it's one that I just completely forgot about until listening to these for the show. And when it started to play, it's like, oh, I remember this one. I like this one. That kind of recognition.
Was that
for
Octopussy?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the first Bond movie I saw.
I don't know for sure what the first one I saw was. The first one I remember seeing was Thunderball. But I don't know if it was actually the first one I saw or if it was just the first one that I can recall. Because one of the big things just growing up historically, because of the popularity of Bond by my father, those movies tended to be the ones that would be sold out and just playing in the background. So it's very likely that any one of the films that had been released up to a certain point could have played, and I could have seen it, etc. But Thunderball is the first one that I specifically recall, like the title and some aspects of the plot.
I remember watching the opening credits, and I was like, I must have been 9 or 10, and I really wanted to watch it. And I was on vacation. It was summer vacation. My grandparents were there, and my mom wasn't going to let me watch. It was on TBS. It came on TV everybody was going to bed, and I was sleeping out on the couch in the living room down at my grandparents' condominium in Florida, and I wanted to, one of the things as a 10-year-old I got to do was like, I don't get a regular bed, but I get to sit out and, I get to sleep out in the couch in the living room, and you get to watch TV for a little bit, all by yourself. And that was kind of cool as a 10-year-old. And, Octopussy was coming on. It was on TBS back in the day when TBS, they started their shows 5 minutes after the hour or half hour. And, that's a whole weird thing. Anyway, my mom wasn't going to let me watch it, but my grandfather said, "Oh no, it's okay. He can watch it." And I just remember being just like really amazed. Like I'd never seen a movie like that before because, there's a whole chase sequence at the beginning, and he ends up having a car that turns, I can't remember if it's a car that turns into a plane or a plane that comes out of the back of a truck or, like a moving truck. I don't remember. But I just remember at the end of the sequence, Moore pulls up in his airplane and folds up the wings and asks for someone to put more fuel in it. It's amusing. It's, pretty cheesy, but, for a 10-year-old, that was just kind of like, woo, I don't think my kids will ever experience anything like that because they've seen some good movies. But I do distinctly remember hearing the song and watching the sequence of silhouettes or heavily shadowed women's bodies on the screen and being like, I can see why my conservative mother did not want me watching it, but my grandfather vouched for it, and so I got to see the movie.
If I recall correctly, it was a car that became a plane, but I don't recall. I would not put my confidence in that thought over 65-ish%.
Well, it was an airplane that you didn't expect to see a small airplane like this, and so
yeah,
it was something.
And the main reason that I think that was it is I do remember during the Moore era there were a lot of very strange cars. We'll just put it that way. I mean, you had there was a boat / float / car kind of thing that I remember. I don't even remember which film off the top of my head. Like this would be where I would want to actually go back and do some research on the types of gadgets and things that were really leaned on during the eras, because during the Brosnan era it was a huge departure from the norm as well, because you had Ford Motor Company providing the vehicles, and so there was a more of an emphasis on those, or I think BMW also had fairly prominent advertising space in a couple of those films.
Yeah, BMW had heavy heavy tie-ins with the movie for GoldenEye. I don't think they debuted the Z3 in there, but it was heavily featured in that movie, and they also ran a lot of ads for it. And yeah.
So I will go on record, even though the topic is not on Bond vehicles. I will still go on record that the only acceptable classic vehicle for Bond is any variation of an Aston Martin. That's it.
I loved when he had the Ford Focus in Casino Royale. That was so good. I mean, he ended up having he ended up driving a DBS. And that's like, oh, okay, here's the Bond car. Here's the DBS. But yeah, that Ford Focus joke was just spot on.
There's a huge difference between commandeering a vehicle or grabbing a vehicle and what is issued by Q Branch.
Mm-hmm.
And what is issued by Q Branch should be high-end luxury with toys, right? I mean, that's historically what it's been.
Yeah.
But back to the songs. We have so many other side topics in general. And it's easy to do because Bond has spanned 30, 40 years now. And actually no, the first one would have been 63,
62.
So almost we're somewhere in the vicinity of the 50-year anniversary of Bond on the silver screen.
No, 60 years. This year would be 60 years.
Okay. So thinking about how long a span that is, and the fact that it encompasses our entire lifespans, it's perfectly understandable why there are plenty of tangents and side topics that we can delve into with regard to Bond. But I want to bring us back to the songs for a moment. The other general question I had was, if you were to think about the song catalog from the Bond films, and specifically the theme songs, like we've been talking about mostly, what would you say is the worst Bond theme song?
Are we including Die Another Day?
Any of the Bond films, the theme songs. Like, if Die Another Day is the one that you say is absolutely the worst, then that's fine. And that's the question, though, is which one would you say is absolutely, hands down, the worst?
Die Another Day and Tomorrow Never Dies are like neck and neck for me.
Tomorrow Never Dies is very forgettable for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate it. It's one that I have to hear it again to remember it, kind of thing. You know, it's like Die Another Day, I vociferously dislike, to put it mildly. But Tomorrow Never Dies is one that just kind of fades away from me.
To me, the movie stole the show with that movie, with the music from that movie, and while Sheryl Crow is an excellent artist, and her Bond song was not, it's not her best work.
I can understand that. I actually, this may be an unpopular opinion, I really dislike The Living Daylights by a-ha.
That's interesting, because like when I was listening to it, I noticed like a lot of the songs are similar. Like, they're very cohesive for a couple of decades. And I felt like Duran Duran was the first one. Well, Paul McCartney and Wings, it's like, okay, they definitely stick out. And I guess that song came out not long after the Beatles broke up, and I can hear like Paul McCartney's influence, and because it kind of has like, oh, this could have been a Beatles song. There's some definitely similarities to what he was doing with the Beatles. And then, the songs that follow that with, there's another Shirley Bassey song that comes a few years after that, and I felt like they continued back being cohesive again with everything prior to that, except for Paul McCartney and the Wings. And then Duran Duran they have a View to a Kill, and it's like, wow, that it's very clearly Duran Duran. It does not feel cohesive with the rest of the Bond songs. And a-ha did the same thing, and I can see how I went when I was going back and listening. I was like, I didn't realize a-ha was big enough to do a Bond song. I didn't realize they were that big of a band in the 80s. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, and to be clear, like I still would listen to it over Die Another Day, but for some reason I really just dislike that song. And I wouldn't say that I dislike a-ha on the whole, but for some reason or another, and I haven't tried to take the time to actually figure out why, I just really dislike The Living Daylights.
I didn't even, I never even really thought about it, but if you had said to me before, I went back and was listening to this music, if you had said to me a-ha was a one-hit wonder and their big song was, what was that song? Take On Me? Take On Me?
I have no idea.
You know the song Take On Me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you told me that was a-ha was a one-hit wonder and Take On Me was their one song, I'd be like, oh, okay. Because that's like the only a-ha song I know.
Yeah, and maybe part of it is because there's nothing that they've performed that I gravitate toward. I don't know. Like, if I were to choose the one that I absolutely despise the most, it would be Die Another Day. So we're in agreement there.
Yeah.
But the only other one that, as I listen to, I just feel this dislike for, is The Living Daylights, and so I wanted to mention it because it's not one, like, I will let it play. It's not that I will change the song or, have to rush to say, no, I'm not going to listen to that. Whereas Die Another Day, I will find the remote and skip without a problem. But just something about it is not for me. That's probably the best way to put it.
Looking at the artist, if you'd asked me which one do you think will be your least favorite, I would have said Goldeneye. And a lot of it is I have this preconceived notion of what a Tina Turner song is gonna sound like, and then when I hear something that she's done that's not terrible to me, or not that I don't want to say terrible, that's the wrong word. A song that I don't dislike of hers, I'm like, I forget she's a talented artist. But like looking at the list of artists, I'm like, that's the one I'm gonna like least. But it's a good song.
I think part of why I like Tina Turner in general is she also did, which one was it? I think it was Can't Stop This Thing We Started with Bryan Adams. There's a crossover there where she performed with Bryan Adams, and it sounded really, really good. And it gave me, that particular song was the one that gave me a greater appreciation for her vocal abilities, because I wasn't listening to a song in the context of what it meant to be Tina Turner performing a song. I was listening to a song that was not her song, where she was lending her presence to, if that makes sense. And so Goldeneye I do enjoy, and I do appreciate the range that she brings to it. It is not one of my favorites, but I do think it's a decent theme song.
Thunderball by Tom Jones is one that I just I kind of feel the same way that maybe you feel about Tina Turner. I was like, the music's really good. He's a good singer, but I feel like there's something that just doesn't quite fit there. So, is there any artist that you think is missing from this list?
Oh, absolutely.
Who are the artists that you think are missing?
I would love to hear. So, are you familiar with "It's Probably Me" by Clapton? And I think it was Clapton and Sting that performed it for Lethal Weapon 3.
No, I know I've heard it because I watched the movie, but I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. So to me, having something like that, even if it's just having Clapton lend his guitar playing ability to a song, to me, he is missing from the list for sure. I think he could do something interesting. I would love to find out what that would be. I do have a number of issues with his non-musical presence and everything else. So, like, let's make sure we separate the artist from his public persona and everything else. But Clapton, to me, is missing from the list. I would also...
I could see that.
Yeah, he's just kind of a strange character. I'd also, even if you didn't go the Clapton route, Sting has done a couple of things that were very interesting for movies in general. So he corroborated or worked with Clapton for "It's Probably Me." He also did the theme for Demolition Man, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I would say Clapton first. He's the one that's missing. But if for some reason Clapton is not a choice, substitute Sting, and let's see what he can do with a Bond theme. Outside of that, I don't know that I have strong opinions on the artist. It's more, I'm open to what comes next. But those are the two that come to mind that I would like to know what they could do with a Bond theme.
I feel like Whitney Houston is missing from this list, and she'll never be on the list.
I can see that, for sure. Especially when you think about the general stereotype, I guess, of artist on the list.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way because it's not, I don't mean it negatively at all. But if you think about, the artists that have performed themes, I can see that connection immediately.
I don't think she should have taken any of Shirley Bassey's songs, even though she has 3. But I do think she's missing from the list. And
I just thought of another one, FYI.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you familiar with Jasmine Thompson?
No.
I first heard of her from Jim Dalrymple on one of his podcasts.
That's not a name I was expecting to hear here.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is... I don't remember specifically the context of what I heard, but for those listening, Jim Dalrymple created The Loop, big Apple News coverage person in general. I've listened to his podcasts off and on here and there. One of the big things that I enjoy his input on is audio-related stuff because he's a guitar player. And he name-dropped Jasmine Thompson at one point, and so I looked her up. She's from Ireland, if I remember correctly. But she has a couple of albums. She's done covers of a number of different songs that have all been really good. Talking about like how Whitney Houston could fit in, she would also be a perfect candidate for what you would think of in the same genre. Maybe not the same type of song, because she does focus more on a combination of guitar playing and vocals, but definitely someone who seems to possess that same type of range.
Yeah, it's what's one of the things that's interesting about the artists that are in this list, that they tend to be artists that are in vogue at the time of the movie's release. Like Billie Eilish, it's no surprise to me that she's on this list. Same as Adele. They are artists that are wildly popular right now. Taylor Swift could be on this list, but her style of music doesn't lend itself to this type of song.
So I have a quick confession. Like I've listened to a handful of things from Billie Eilish, and I don't think they're bad at all. I don't understand what all the fuss is about.
I'm the same way, and I'm not gonna tell people that they're wrong for listening to her, because they're not. She's a talented person, but
yeah, I agree. Like I certainly think you and I approach it the exact same way. It's just I don't get it.
This might be a generational thing, but I know plenty of millennials and Gen X folks that do like her. So I don't know, but I don't even think I think I would have said this if she was an artist from 20 years ago. I think with the same amount of notoriety, I think I would have said the exact same thing.
Yeah, I certainly have enjoyed listening to the theme for No Time to Die. It doesn't resonate with me the way other songs do. And the other place that I've heard a number of stuff from her, one of the neat things about Fitness Plus, just to tie it all in, is that some of the artists or some of the workouts also feature like artist spotlights. So there was a workout, I don't remember which one I did, but there was a workout where all of the music during the workout was Billie Eilish, and it was fine to listen to. I had no problems with it, but it certainly was not something I would seek out and listen to on my own. And so I think it's just not my type of music.
So there's popular artists, or in vogue artists that are asked to perform these songs, and I don't know to what extent that they are involved with lyrics and so forth, but obviously very musically they are probably. I don't think they have free reign, but at the same time, they also probably want to be like, we're making a Bond song. We want to make this sound like a Bond song. But there's a noticeable gap in Bond movies from 1989 to 1995, and I remember when there's a lot of hype about GoldenEye because there's a 6-year gap. There is a brand new Bond. People hated Timothy Dalton, and people were really excited about Pierce Brosnan. So there's a number of things, like the studios were hyping it. There was that BMW tie-in. And I can't help but wonder, do we not have 6 years of Bond movies in the early 90s because nobody wanted to get a grunge band doing a Bond song?
So I do remember that there was some legal dispute that created a pause in production.
Something between MGM and United Artists?
Maybe. The thing that I remember is I know Timothy Dalton could have played Bond a third time, but whatever legal dispute arose pushed production back long enough that he wasn't interested in continuing or had some other commitment or something like that. But he was originally going to play Bond a third time.
I didn't realize he was only in 2 movies.
Yep. Not A View to a Kill.
License to Kill and The Living Daylights. I've seen both of those.
I always want to say A View to a Kill because the naming is so close, and A View to a Kill is the one that jumps into my mind. But yeah, License to Kill is the one he played.
I guess that was the last Roger Moore View to a Kill.
I think so. I know Moore was the one that starred in it. I don't recall if that was his last one or not.
I think it had to. Yeah, it definitely was. I just, the closest we got to anybody from the grunge scene was Chris Cornell in 2006. But it was just Chris Cornell. It wasn't Audio Slave, even though, yeah, that would have been cool if it had been all of, Audio Slave. But yeah, I was noticing. So I guess I agree in general, like just thinking about it. But then I started thinking about musical genres as a whole. When was a delineation of what it meant to be grunge actually popularized? Not when did it exist, right? But when would saying a artist or album was grunge mean something to a majority of people? It's so early 90s. So I would even say, like, you could even say sometime in 91, grunge, the term grunge was in the vernacular. Like, if you listen to music, if you were listening to popular music in 1991, you know it, whether you liked it or not, you know what grunge is. And anybody who was talking about music, again, whether they liked it or not, grunge was a thing that was, grunge music was a type of music that was was filling up the radio waves. And, 91, I think there's a lot of seminal albums that came from that genre that came out in 91. You had Nevermind and Alive.
And the main reason I had to ask is just because it was not music that was on my radar for a while. And so it was just clarification on like timeline of emergence and when it became more or less commonplace.
Yeah, I've been kind of a snob about it because it's really tricky to be like, what is the difference between grunge and, Like I don't think I would have ever considered the Smashing Pumpkins grunge. But they are in the same sphere as Nirvana and Pearl Jam, but I don't think they're necessarily the same subgenre. And then there's like the use of the word alternative, and it's like, where did that come from? And alternative, people use alternative as a genre of music, and really it was just a movement in music that was an alternative to like 80s pop. And so, yeah.
I would not have classified like Nirvana as grunge.
Yeah, I think they were like, quintessential grunge.
Interesting. I legitimately find this interesting because for me, like, Nirvana has always been just kind of a cornerstone of what it meant to be. Well, I mean, alternative rock is how it was always described.
Right.
Grunge was never in my vernacular. It was always, you had classic rock, heavy rock, alternative rock, and pop. And that was more or less kind of the grouping loosely, other than like country, R&B, etc. And grunge just never entered my vernacular when talking about music, and that's legitimately why I was curious about it, because I've heard it, of course, since then, but because it was never something that was how music was presented to me, I've never tied anything to what that means.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't even know how to. I guess it's a subgenre of rock. I mean, have you ever heard of the term new metal? And it's stylized capital N, capital U, and the word metal.
I mean, I feel like I've heard someone mentioning it.
It's probably me.
I don't think so. I think because I've also, in similar categories, heard of death metal and
speed metal.
Yeah, like that. To me, there's a certain type of music that is just, that's not something I care about. And it tends to be when you get to the heavier end of metal rock and all of its interesting forks.
Yeah, so new metal would have been things like Korn and Limp Bizkit and basically anything that might have been on the Fast and the Furious first couple of Fast and the Furious soundtracks, that kind of stuff. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Learn new classifications every day.
Yeah, so all words are made up, and so are the genres. These genres are made up, and it's like you're trying to like take this art that somebody has made and categorize it. And you can say like, if I say if we talk about Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Mudhoney and any of the other grunge groups, you'd be like, yeah, they sort of fit into a grouping together that might be different from the Smashing Pumpkins and Weezer and other Semisonic or Sonic Youth, slightly different.
Semisonic was a now artist or group as well.
Yeah. So you can take that group over here and compare it to that group over there. It's like, I can see how those artists are in that group and those artists are in that group, and it's in this larger collective group that's different from pop. And so, yeah. But again, it's all made up.
So to bring the conversation back to Bond theme songs, were there any? You mentioned Whitney Houston. Was there any other artist though? I didn't want to let that question go without circling back to it.
So yeah, just to, it would have been interesting to see a Korn Bond song. It'd be weird, but I probably wouldn't have brought them up other than like Limp Bizkit had a great song for the second Mission Impossible 2. Mission Impossible 2. The second Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise.
Yeah. It was.
So
it's still one that is in the random rotation on the playlist.
Yeah. So I think that song is if you know you want to something about killing. Now I know you want to kill me. I actually don't remember. I know the lyrics, but not the name of the song. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm
the same way.
But seeing what they did with that song and how it was there was a lot of homage to the recognizable Mission Impossible theme. I think it would have been cool to another band from that genre or subgenre to do something to a Bond song. And so I was like, well, if Limp Bizkit already did it to, did a Mission Impossible song, maybe, would have loved to have Korn do the music for Die Another Day instead of Madonna. Like, would have happily have them. I think most people would have agreed that Korn would have made a better Die Another Day. Don't even like the genre. That's just the worst. It's the worst one.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many little things. Like we could dissect it, and I could point to a bunch of different things that I dislike. It just overall, nothing about the end result for Die Another Day does anything other than be a high profile song.
Yeah. The other thing that's just missing, like just blatantly missing from the list are any rap artists.
Generally speaking, there's only really kind of a singular genre represented. I mean, you could potentially make the case for two, right? Some blurring of the lines between what it means to be actually a rock-styled song versus a pop-styled song. But the general feel of all of them is fairly similar, even if there are fairly strong differences. So there's no country, there's no rap, there's no R&B, there's no huge deviation from what you would consider general mainstream music.
I feel like You Know My Name and Another Way to Die might be significant deviations.
I mean, they are from the standpoint of the entire Bond catalog.
Yeah.
But not drastically so. Like, listening to the entire catalog, they still have a common enough feel to them, and feel is very loose here that I don't have a good way to quantify that. But it's not like they are drastically different styles.
Do you think Do you think Duran Duran and Aha are more different than to the cohesiveness of the songs than Chris Cornell?
I think Die Another Day is a big standout as lacking cohesiveness across the board.
We can just throw that one out. That one is the.
But
it's certainly the most disappointing.
But even then, like if you listen to Die Another Day and you listen to like Another Way to Die, they don't sound like they're from drastically different types of artists necessarily.
Right. Like even like the World Is Not Enough. You could stick it into one of the songs from the 60s and be like, okay, this could work.
Right. And so like,
and vice versa.
I can't really point to anything that is a standout from a genre or musical feel perspective in a way that would say this is a very different type of song. Like there are certainly individual installments that are drastically different from a direct comparison to the other Bond themes, right? Like we've talked about that. but they still feel like they fit in the same general kind of musical category.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the cohesive story. That's the element that they all feel either rockish or popish, if you tried to describe it.
Yeah.
Because none of them necessarily feel like it's a pure rock song or a pure pop song either.
No.
I mean, that's kind of the nature of a Bond theme.
I mean, a lot of them skew more even back towards the orchestra from
Right.
the very first Bond theme.
And so there is a fairly cohesive feel of what it means to be a Bond theme song, at least to me, listening to the catalog that we have. But what is missing is none of them are in any way, shape, fashion, or form rap or country or really heavy rock or really focused R&B, blues. None of them are the other categories of musical production that we come to know.
Yeah, that is a good point. So one last thing about Bond music, the pause music for GoldenEye on Nintendo 64.
I figured that would be coming up.
Yeah,
it's classic. It's iconic.
I mean, I love that. I love that video. He's like, "Don't go too crazy," and they're just like, "This is really good."
I can't say anything bad about it. Like the only thing I can say bad about it is that I can't easily find it.
I know
in like Apple Music.
It should be available for the masses. So I know more. Let's see. I know that when GoldenEye came out, I didn't get to see that movie, and not straight away. It was at some point I rented it and watched it on a VCR. And I don't know if that happened before, or I'm pretty sure I saw it before I actually played GoldenEye, which did not come out for 2 years. Like the movie came out in 1995, and GoldenEye, the Nintendo 64 game, was released in 1997. There's like a whole 2 years, and that's kind of, if you don't know anything about GoldenEye, it's kind of a marvel of retro gaming. Anyway, that's another topic for another show. And anyway, the music though, I was familiar with. Like the music in the game, I was very familiar with. Like that music is in my head. Like all of the music in the gameplay, all of the music in the multiplayer. The pause music is brilliant. And like you said, it should be available. And then, so it's in my head. It's very firmly has its place in my head because I played a lot of Bond. And I recently, like I said, I had not watched a pre-Craig Bond movie until November of 2021, and it was GoldenEye. And I did not realize how well they created the game music to match the score in the movie. It's so good.
And I don't think, let me rephrase this. My recollection and perception is that it's the only one that felt like it was cohesively a part of the same.
Yeah.
world.
Oh, it's like the story play mode of GoldenEye is almost exactly the movie. It's down to the rooms that you go to and the equipment. Like it's such a good replica of the movie. It's such a good. Not a replica, but a adaptation of the story from the movie. Everything that Bond does in GoldenEye, you pretty much get to do in the GoldenEye game. And the music is just as it's just as well adapted and it's just it's really good. I just was watching the movie and I was like, this is the music from the video game. And I think if you get people like our age rewatching that movie, you're gonna be like, this is the music from the video game. The movie ripped off the game music from 2 years into the future. That's how good it was.
Yeah. I can't disagree with it at all. I mean, the GoldenEye, the game, was the epitome of what it should be in every way, shape, fashion, and form. Like the single player, the multiplayer, everything. This was exactly what a Bond game should be, and it's the only installment that felt that way.
Honestly, it is like, this is how you adapt something. If you have this work of art and you want to do this work of art, I don't care if you have a game that you turn into a movie, or a movie that you turn into a game, or a TV show that you turn into a movie, or a picture that you turn into a book. What Rare did for 007 GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 is how you adapt something. It's like, here's something from one genre and here it is on another genre, and we're going to call it the same thing. And that's, they could have come up with an entirely different James Bond game and made their own story and have it have nothing to do with any of the movies, and it would have been a good game. But to make an adaptation, it's just like, that is the best adaptation I've ever seen. Best example of an adaptation from one genre to another, especially the music. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.